Listen, the NFL is very intentional with its schedule. It's making bets on things. I still think the Cowboys are on TV way too much, and I work for Fox. But there's a couple of schedules that are interesting. The Chicago Bears schedule is interesting. A very soft middle and big brands late. Philly, Green Bay, San Francisco, rivalry game with Detroit. So it's a rough 6 weeks at the end, but with all these new offensive line pieces, and we've talked about this, cohesion for the Bears O-line, it won't be great in August and September. They should have their act together late. So the NFL sent a message. We think Chicago is going to be a viable TV product at the end of this year. They have they have the clever new coach, an ascending player at quarterback, a lot of good weapons. So at the end of the season, it's Philly, it's San Francisco, it's Green Bay twice. League thinks they're going to be good and interesting. And so do I. So 5 of their last 6 games are either on TV against big brands or they're flexible. So, and it's a very soft middle of the schedule, right? There's a chance to get some wins here. So it's a very purposeful act by the NFL on the Chicago Bears. The other one that jumped out to me.
Okay. He's then going to start talking about the Commanders, but we're here to talk about the Bears. The reason why I'm laughing is for a couple of reasons. I remember when the schedule was released last year, there was all the conspiracy thinking of like, oh, they want to give an easy schedule to the Chicago Bears because they want Caleb to be great and they know that it's going to be hard in the beginning of this season and this and that. And, you know, lots of other people were talking about, and Colin brought up, every time Colin kept interviewing all the various people, Peter Schrager, Albert Breer, Jimmy Johnson. I remember it because I kept making clips about it because he kept bringing it up. Oh, the NFL knows they want to give some easy games, and it was against like the Tennessee Titans. And I remember being like, I understand what you're saying, but like also like I don't know, against the Houston Texans, I think that was like week 2. CJ Stroud, I was like, that's a pretty big game. Like that's not an easy game. And I don't remember exactly how their schedule unfolded, but we talked about it. And listen, Colin does understand the NFL in terms of like the media aspect of it all. He's obviously way more connected. He actually talks to the people who legitimately run these networks and run these billion-dollar businesses. So like he's in the know way more than you or I ever will be. But like the NFL is not sending a message by any sort, especially because some of these big games, it's the Green Bay Packers and the Lions. It's their division. I mean, it's their division. And all around the NFL really keeps double and triple downing on these late of the year division games because they believe that they're going to be so important and they're hoping that they're not sitting. And I keep saying, it's such a coin flip because, on one side, you absolutely can get a repeat of the Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings game. Winner wins a division. Winner gets the number 1 seed. It's an extra playoff game, essentially, and it was awesome. It was exciting, and everybody wants to talk about it. But on the flip side, you also have games like the Commanders versus the Cowboys, where nobody really cared about that game, and the Eagles versus the Giants, where the entire team wasn't playing, and the Chiefs and the Broncos, where I don't know if a single starter for the Kansas City Chiefs played a single snap. So like, you just don't know, quite frankly, because the NFL was predicting that the Denver Broncos weren't even going to make the playoffs, and that the Bengals were, and that the Chiefs, of course, were, and at the end of their season, they had them playing the Bengals and the Chiefs, and and it's like, okay, were they predicting that the Broncos were ready to be there? So no, I think ultimately these schedules end up, the NFL is trying to hedge their bets and all of this, but there's no message being sent, quite frankly. And when your division is box office and is already a gauntlet, well, that's already now 6 games just off the bat that are going to be a little bit crazy and a little bit intense. You have the Packers twice. They keep doing this a lot, the NFL, where they keep doing division game, division game, and it's often the same team. You know, the Commanders blank the Commanders, and I don't know why they keep doing that. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of watching the Bears play the Packers, then the Browns, and then the Packers again. That's not my style, but you know, whatever. But to look at the schedule straight up on the surface right now, you know, playing the Vikings week 1, divisional week 1 games can always be a little wonky, but like, again, when I'm doing the schedule releases, I like to look at it through the lens of the team that I'm talking about, right? And so if I was looking at it through the lens of the Vikings, I'm going to look at it differently. And if I'm looking at it through the lens of the Bears, I'm looking at it differently. And if I'm looking at it through the Bears lens, I'm like, first year starter, JJ McCarthy, his first game in his NFL career should not, in theory, be the smoothest game possible. Like, this should be a game that the Bears win, right? And should make them feel great, 1-0. Now they're 1-0 in the division. Let's go. Obviously, on the flip side, if you're looking at it through the Vikings lens, you should be like, hey, Caleb Williams wasn't that good. First year starter, first year head coach with Ben Johnson. Their O-line should be a mess in week 1. You know, we won 14 games or whatever, however many games it was. Like, hey, like, let's get after it. So it all depends on the lens that you want to look at it for. But if I was forced to make a decision, it's like, I see the advantage Bears. Now, right off the bat, you have this massive, massive, massive game of the Bears versus the Lions. The return of Ben Johnson to Detroit. And everyone for the Bears franchise, you know, for that team is going to want to win that game. They're going to want to be able to put out, you know, have a great challenge against the Lions. Ben Johnson also wants to prove, hey, man, you guys are going to miss me. I am that offense. I am the brains of that offense. Like, I am him. So believe me, that game is going to be all hands on deck. Then you have the Dallas Cowboys. Honestly, I'm still kind of just waiting and seeing what type of team they're going to be, but right now I give the advantage to the Bears for sure. I do believe that the Raiders are going to be significantly better of a team, but by week 4, you know, it's hard for me to gauge since it's obviously such a new team, new offense, new quarterback, new defensive coach, new offensive head coach, new running back. There's just so much new there, and I believe in them, but by week 4, not so, you know, it's unclear to me if they'll be able to start momentum building just yet. Then you have another absolutely massive game, Washington Commanders, right? This revenge, this rematch, the first 2 quarterbacks taken. These quarterbacks are tied together forever, just like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow are. It's Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. And so this game is going to be massive. It's going to be larger than life. It's going to be, you know, one of the most talked about games, no ifs, ands, or buts. Then you have the Saints, and it's like, well, that should be, you know, again, if you're a great team like that, should be, you know, a pretty easy, straightforward game for the Bears. And even if they now lose to the Commanders, they lose a tough game or whatever, it's like, okay, that's a get-right game, though, then against the Saints. But then immediately you're back at it with the Ravens, who will be a top team. It would be absolutely, utterly shocking if the Ravens are not a top team. And then again, the Bengals, it all comes down to their defense. You know, it's like, is their defense good enough? Yes or no? But that also will hardly be an easy game to face. And then again, now at this point, you know, the weeks 10 to 18, it's a mixed bag. You know, the Giants should be should be easier. Week 11, JJ McCarthy should be significantly more settled, unless he's just a terrible quarterback. Any of the growing pains that he went through in the first, 9-10 weeks, like, won't be 100% resolved, but he should, this team should be better. The Vikings should be better in week 11 than in week 1 at the end of the day. So you have that. Again, the Steelers, I mean, again, I every time I come across the Steelers when I'm going through the schedule, I'm always like, who's the quarterback? Is it Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers? I don't know, and neither do you, so what the heck? Then you got the Eagles versus the Bears. That's going to be a tough game. And then you got the Packers, obviously tough. And then the Browns, I mean, I can't imagine that being tough. And then hooray, you got the Packers again. And then the 49ers and the Lions. So, I think all these schedules, every single schedule that I've done for the most part has really been a pretty big mixed bag, except for actually the Eagles, where every game is just like, yeah, that's a tough game. That's a tough game. That's a tough game. But, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is hardly the easiest schedule, but it's also hardly the hardest schedule. But I do I do appreciate the order a little bit of this schedule in terms of when you play some of these tough games, because I think playing the division, the Vikings, week 1 against, again, essentially rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy, I think that's a gift. I really do. But you're playing against a quarterback who it's his first time starting in the NFL. That is a gift. No matter how amazing you think, if you're the biggest Minnesota Vikings fan in the entire world and the biggest JJ McCarthy fan in the entire world, you have to concede that the first game in their career is not going to be the easiest game. So the advantage has to be for the Chicago Bears. I see that being the advantage. I think actually having to face the Lions in week 2, that's harder. If the NFL was really trying to make things a little bit easier for them, they would have put the Saints then at week 2, or the Cowboys even at week 2, or even the Raiders. But I think having to face the Lions week 2, that's actually probably, that's a tough one week 2 for sure. But yeah, I mean, you then have you play the Commanders, which, like I said, will be a tough game. And then obviously sandwiched in between that is the Saints and then the Ravens and the Bengals, which again, the Ravens and the Bengals will be a tough game. But then you get some relief with the Giants. And, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't see that there's a lot of games that should give them negative momentum, where even if they lost a game, and let's say they just lose to the Ravens and the Bengals, right? Those end up being tough games. The Ravens are a great team, and the Bengals are back more to their Super Bowl level form, where they're truly a top team as well. They're a top 3, top 4 contender in the AFC. And so let's just say the Bears drop both those games. They then get some relief against the Giants. And then again, if the Vikings are better than you with first year starter JJ McCarthy, well then it's like, well then they're just better than you, right? But if not, then that's obviously a winnable game, as well as the Steelers. So, then you have 2 tough games, the Eagles and the Packers, but then you get to some relief with the Browns. So there's not like this avalanche of games where it's like, oh man, if you lose against the Ravens and the Bengals, like you're in trouble, because like you're probably going to now lose to this team and then this team and then this team, and now that's a 5-game losing streak. Like I don't see that there. I do see a lot of, some breaks, albeit not like the easiest, get right games. Really the only true get right game that I could see is against the Saints, but could be the Giants as well. But yeah, I'm looking at this schedule. I'm looking at these games, and I feel like the Bears should be in pretty much all of them. I'd give them the grace to, if I take a very extreme look at it, to get smoked. And again, I'm not predicting this, but I would totally be like, you could get smoked, you could get rocked by the Ravens, you could get rocked by the Bengals, and you can get rocked by the Eagles. And again, not predictions, just saying. And I wouldn't lose sleep over it. I wouldn't be like, oh, see, they're not that good. I'd be like, okay, these have been great teams historically over the last, 5+ years or so. And it's like, and I'm expecting you, though, to be in every single other game, though. Like, that's the thing. Because you could have a schedule where it's like, oh man, you got to play the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Ravens, the Bills, the Bengals. Once upon a time, the 49ers were like disheartening to play with when they were in their prime, with Christian McCaffrey in his prime and Debo, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think the 49ers won't be as bad as they were last season, but I'm not thinking, once upon a time I was like, oh, 49ers, they're guaranteed top seed in the NFL. I don't look at it like that, at least right now. I think they're kind of in this new transition of their team. So I think all things considered, if the Bears are able to actually take a legitimate step forward from last season, and Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are him and him, well then I see them in they should be in every single game, except for, and again, not saying that they won't be in those games, but I'd give them the benefit of the doubt to get beat pretty good by the Ravens or the Eagles, as long as the Eagles are back to who they were. And maybe even the Bengals. But outside of that, it's like, the tough games are the divisional games, and I expect you to be in those games. You were in those games even when you weren't that good. So I certainly expect you to be in those games when you are good. So I don't know. I feel pretty good about it. But no, I don't think the NFL is sending any message. I'm so sorry. I think they're just making a schedule. They're just trying to find the way to make it the most entertaining, the most interesting, and that's just the way it's gonna go. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears? What are the expectations for the Bears with Caleb and Ben Johnson? How do you feel about this schedule? Do you think the NFL is trying to send a message? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.